LEGO Star Wars has been releasing sets for well over 25 years now, with several sets evolving significantly over the years. However, there are some older sets that are still incredibly iconic and beloved today. In this video, I want to look back at what I think are some of the best classic LEGO Star Wars sets from 1999 to 2005. Jumping right to it, I want to talk about the Mos Espa pod race released all the way back in 1999. I think this is one of the best pod racer sets LEGO has ever made, mainly because of the concept of the set as a whole. In later years, we got to see Sebulba and Anakin's pod race in 2011 with very updated designs for these pod racers. And then in 2019 we got Anakin's pod racer alone in its own set. But this original 1999 set was the only set to include 3 different pod racers all in one. And for the time they looked rather good too. This also went very well with the pod racing bucket released a year later, which might be one of the most unique LEGO Star Wars sets ever made, actually also including 3 pod racers, but these were never remade in later years. With an original retail price of $90, this one is now worth $200, which is actually not bad considering it is over 25 years old. Also from 1999 we got a handful of sets for different iconic ships from the Star Wars original trilogy, but one of my favorites from the wave was the TIE Fighter and Y-Wing. This depicted the first TIE Advanced and the first Y-Wing, and once again for the time it was fairly decent too. Dual sets like these were rather common in the earliest years of LEGO Star Wars, and it is something that LEGO has started to do in recent years as well, which is something I think is very necessary and helps to get 2 ships in one set. I think the idea of a set including a TIE Advanced and a Y-Wing is very good too, and I wish this is something we could get in modern years as well, to go well alongside sets like the X-Wing and TIE Fighter dual set released in 2024. This set was later re-released as well, and as far as I am aware they were the exact same sets just with different boxes. The original set retailed for $50 in 1999, but today it is worth around $230. Moving on, I actually want to look at some of the smallest sets from the earliest years of LEGO Star Wars. The first being the classic lightsaber duel. This was a very simple set from 1999 including both Qui-Gon Jinn and Darth Maul, and this small speeder build too. This set included a total of 52 pieces, and I can imagine the only reason you would actually get this one would be for those minifigures. I really like this concept for a set, and I think it would be so cool today to get small sets like this with some great minifigures included, and today it would be like a $10 set. This concept is returning however, as we are getting a small $10 set in January depicting Mando and Grogu speeder, and I am quite excited for that. Despite the $6 retail price, this one is worth close to $100 today. And on a similar note, I want to talk about the Jedi Duel from 2002. This was another smaller $10 sized set from back in the day, mainly including the 2 named characters of Yoda and Count Dooku. Once again, although the set is very outdated, this concept is still so cool, and I could only imagine how good something like this would be for a $10 to $15 set today, including newer versions of Count Dooku and Yoda. This set also had a decent speeder build for the time, and today this one is quite sought after too, at around $130. And once again for Attack of the Clones, in 2002 we got the Bounty Hunter Pursuit. This was a very good set at the time, and despite being well over 2 decades old, this scene was never remade in a modern way, which I think is quite strange as I can imagine a set like this would sell fairly well today, especially considering the minifigures that could be included. Anyway, this older set was quite nice, including both the different speeders from the scene, both with very good builds for the time that I think also holds up today. And this was the only set to ever include Zam Wesell, a minifigure worth over $100 today. This set retailed at only $30 in 2002, but it is worth well over $300 today. I once again want to look at some smaller sets, and this time a whole series of sets at once, and those are the minifigure packs released in 2000. There were 4 of these sets all released in this one year, and looking back, this was one of the coolest concepts from the classic days of LEGO Star Wars, and would sell so well today too. The first two minifigure packs included some major named characters such as Darth Vader, Palpatine, and Darth Maul, and then Han Solo, Boba Fett, and Luke Skywalker. And then the next two included characters like Chewbacca, some scout troopers, and then a set of 3 battle droids. I think the idea of getting 3 sought after minifigures all in a pack of $5 is so cool, and I can only imagine the potential these could have today as well. Imagine a $10 or so pack including Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka for the Clone Wars, or even a pack including a Stormtrooper, a Scout Trooper, and a modern Snowtrooper. The possibilities are endless, but likely these will never return to modern day LEGO Star Wars. Despite their $5 retail prices back in the day, these minifigure packs are worth between $114 to around $200 today. Moving on, once again, one of the most unique sets of the original trilogy of LEGO Star Wars is the Darth Maul bust. Now this one is a bit strange and doesn't look too good compared to some of the buildable characters or helmet sets we get today, but it was different and a concept we have never seen again. It was quite a large set too, and today it is seen as quite a relic for LEGO Star Wars and sought after by so many fans. There are also rumors that bust sets will also return very soon, likely much smaller than this Darth Maul of course, but still might take some inspiration from it. This set retailed for $150 in 2001, and according to Brickset, this one is worth around $7,500 today, making it one of the most valuable LEGO Star Wars sets ever made. Back to the concept of some of the classic Starfighter duel sets, I want to talk about the TIE Fighter collection. Of course, the builds of these TIE Fighters were all fairly basic and nothing too advanced, but just the concept of getting 4 different ships in one set sounds so fun. I can imagine how exciting it must have been to be a child back when these came out, and out of one box to build up a decent collection of these TIE Fighters, alongside the other similar sets on shelf at the time too. This one retailed for $70 at the time, which for only 680 pieces might have been quite a lot, but today it is worth around $320. A similar style of set for Revenge of the Sith was the Ultimate Space Battle released in 2005. This set included a handful of ships, namely both for Anakin and Obi-Wan's interceptors, 2 Vulture droids and 1 droid tri-fighter. And all that in one set just sounds so good. Once again, these builds were very basic compared to what we see today, but they didn't look bad at all and depicted these ships quite well, despite using so few pieces or finer details. It was also the only way to get Obi-Wan's interceptor at the time, while the other ships were all seen in their own separate sets too. And that is also a concept I like a lot, being able to get some of the individual ships in their own different sets if you didn't want the bigger one to save some money. Anyway, the Ultimate Space Battle retailed at $50 and is worth around $360 today. And of course, I cannot forget to mention the UCS Death Star 2 released in 2005. This was an insane set, and to this day I think it is the best UCS Death Star LEGO has ever made. There were quite a few UCS sets released up until this point, but I decided not to mention them as most of those sets have been remade later on in better ways. But the Death Star is special and unique, as it is the only UCS Death Star that is paneled and completely closed off, making it the perfect Death Star display piece. It is also the only time we saw the second Death Star in LEGO 2, so that was quite nice as well. Of course, this one is rather sought after today too, and despite its $270 retail price, it is worth well over $1,000 today. Another very sought after set is of course Jango Fett's Slave 1, released in 2002. This was a massive upgrade to the first Slave 1 released in 2000, with a much larger build that depicted the shape of the Slave 1 much better. For a very long time this was the only Jango Slave 1 LEGO has ever made, until LEGO made 2 new ones in 2025, and that made the set quite sought after. One of the more sought after parts of the set today is Jango Fett himself, which is a $350 minifigure right now, and for the time this minifigure just looked very cool, and still does honestly. Despite its $50 retail price, the set is worth over $800 right now. And then the final set I want to talk about is nothing too special, but I think the X-Wing Starfighter released in 2004 is a very good set. This was a good upgrade compared to the original 1999 X-Wing and created a design closer to what we saw in the 2010s, which are often seen as some of the best X-Wing sets. To me, this one is special because it is the only X-Wing depicting the Dagobah scene, including some overgrowth on the build as well as Yoda's hut. A build that I think is actually better than the newer Yoda hut set. I have a theory that the new X-Wing next year might be something like this, but only time will tell for sure. Anyway, this one retailed for $50 in 2004, but is now worth over $350. With all that said, what are your favorite sets from the earliest days of LEGO Star Wars? Let me know down below. Then I will see you all in the next one. God bless you and cheers.